Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. FPL Vincenzo here as we head into FPL game week 24. And the first, for a little while, I would say that feels like a bit of a pivotal game week. There's obviously quite a lot of wildcards being used, understandably in some cases. There's some fixture swings for the likes of Chelsea and for Manchester United. And I think a first real opportunity to make some big changes to our teams. Obviously right now, there's still more information to be gained in an ideal world, i.e. which teams qualify for the League Cup final? Will there be double game weeks for some teams in game week 26? And these things and the impact of these are considerable. But I think because of the amount of wild cards being used, I think there could be a bit of FOMO. There could be players we feel like we're missing out on. And for those of us with certain players right now, there's fixtures that maybe don't look too appetizing in the near future. Should we be moving those players on, even though we want them slightly longer term? So I'm going to touch on all these things today. It's going to be more of what I would call a game week 24 sort of lowdown. Not such a clear focus in comparison to some of my other pods. Maybe talking around a few more different subjects. So I'm going to start by talking about Arsenal. And for people like me at the moment who own Bukayo Saka, should we be selling him? He may have been the only sort of asset we could sell this week for some to get to Bruno Fernandes. For me, do I want to sell him for Brian Mbeumo is probably my biggest decision. Obviously, if Arsenal do end up getting that double game week with Wolves in game week 26, that would cause us to still want 3 Arsenal. But do we want Saka? So I thought I'd have a little look at Arsenal season so far, broken down into basically 3 sort of equal length brackets. So game week 1 to 8. Game weeks 9 to 16, and then game week 17 to 23, which I appreciate is 1 fixture less. It's just 7 game weeks in this block. But still, there should be enough of analysis to be done here. So if we look at game week 1 to 8, Arsenal had an XG of just over 14. They were the 4th best attack in the league for XG. 9 to 16, this dropped from 14 to 13 expected goals, and Arsenal dropped from 4th to 5th. And in game week 17 to 23, they're at 13 again, and they're 5th again, with 1 game fewer. So you could argue Arsenal's attack in terms of expected output hasn't really changed in each third so far. It went from 14 to 13. We're on pacing, assuming they get a 1 XG against Leeds. In game week 24, they're going to be at 14 again. And their position, if you look at the league table in terms of XG, they're sort of 4th, 5th. You could argue for a team top of the league, it should be higher than that. But being in this sort of position and having this sort of XG over an 8-game week block hasn't really held Arsenal back so far in the first sort of 2 brackets of this. So they got a lead at the top of the table through the first 8 games and held it through 9 to 16, despite sort of XGs of around 13, 14. So you could argue, as much as most people would argue, Arsenal's attacking output isn't good enough. Their sort of threat from open play isn't good enough. They don't have a goal scorer on enough goals. They don't take enough risks in the attack, too reliant on set pieces, all of these sort of quibbles and criticisms at Arsenal, which are valid in some cases. Do Arsenal really need to address anything massively here? Because they are where they have been for most of the season, and playing in this way has got them top of the league, and in some cases with a nice advantage at the top. If we then look defensively at the same 3 periods, so game week 1 to 8, Arsenal had an XGC in that block of 4.83. So around about 5, they were the best defence through the first 8 weeks. 9 to 16, it was around about 5 again, still the best. And 17 to 23 is where there's been a drop here. So 6.38 in this period. Still the best in the league over 7 game weeks, having a 6.38 XGC. But again, 1 higher than the previous sections, despite having 1 game fewer. So if you were Mikel Arteta here, what would be your sort of chosen path, should we say? Is it to try and improve the attack and do as some say and take more risks in the attack, maybe get more flair players into the team, maybe loosen the shackles a little bit and try and be a bit more creative, take some more risks? Or is it, no, actually, we just need to tighten up our defence here. We've made too many mistakes. We're giving away more silly goals. We need to be more defensively resilient. My gut feeling is that Mikel Arteta is naturally a more defensive-minded coach. He's definitely focused more around shape and around being hard to break down, and seems very content, in my eyes, to leave a game or the results of a game down to fine margins. I think in the past we've had teams where clearly there's one team better than the other, and that team has tried to maximize their better quality, maximize their better tactics. And as a result of that, you'd probably put their win percentage in most games at about 70%. I'm talking about sort of peak Man City under Guardiola here. In many cases, Arsenal have got the best tactics. In many cases, Arsenal have got the best players. But by the process they use of being hard to break down, being hard to score against, and relying on set pieces, etc., to win games, Arsenal's win probability is probably more like 52 to 55%. It's very dangerous. And Arsenal have ended up to try and, I would say, avoid games that are overly reliant on transition, overly reliant on counter-attack, that are too end-to-end with too many uncontrollables. Arsenal have now reduced football matches to set pieces and basically long-range strikes. And who's going to come out on top on those games? Clearly, in many games this year, Arsenal have come out on top by winning games because of their better set pieces. Against Man United last week, they came unstuck because they conceded 2 long-range goals and they made a mistake for the other one with a bad back pass. This is what Arsenal reduce games to, fire margins like this, where you can't control if someone's going to hit sort of a 30-yard shot that's unsavable, or if a defender's going to make an unexpected mistake with a bad back pass or a weak header or a bad decision that gets him sent off or something like that. So my concern with Arsenal is that, if anything, Arsenal will become even more defensive in this block, because Arteta will look at that XGC across the last 7 game weeks and think 6.38 is too high. We need to get back down under 5 here. And if we're giving up an XGC of under 5 across 8 game weeks, we'll win games because we've got this super set piece team, or we've got someone that could score a long range shot. Saka can produce a moment or something like that. And obviously, if Arsenal are doing that, they're looking to go back to what we call 1990s Arsenal, when George Graham was manager, and there was a chant and a well-known phrase around Arsenal of 1-0 to the Arsenal. If that's going to be the focus for Arsenal now, to rely on defensive resilience first, defensive compactness first, and clean sheets as the priority, and happy to win games with 1 goal, then we're putting a lot of pressure on Saka to be involved in that 1 goal. So my gut feeling is to want to sell him. I say at the moment it feels like he's awkward to judge individually, because it feels like he's playing wider. And obviously the wider he is, less likely to score he is. I don't feel like the last block of games he's been getting into as many goal-scoring positions because he's holding width more. And I actually feel like he's now taking his man on down the line more rather than maybe coming inside, which is, say, more of a feature of Saka in the past, that he plays on the right side, left-footed, cross, I think, commonly towards the back post. Someone like Kai Havertz might be challenging for the ball back post and score. So I think it feels like a shift here for Saka, that now he's more likely to take his man on down the line. That's more right foot crosses, capable on his right foot, but it's not as strong as his left. And do Arsenal have the box crashers and the target men in the box to get on the end of his crosses? Moreno, maybe not first choice right now. Obviously, Havertz still not fully fit. All these sorts of factors, which would be more beneficial as the targets for Saka's crosses. Gyökeres not that way inclined. Rice maybe not getting into the box enough, etc. Will Saka end up doing more of what he did against Man United, where he got a cross into the box? And in this case, it was Odegaard who had the last contribution before the goal. Timber could have scored it. Lisandro Martinez's own goal. So, as much as on paper I don't hate these fixtures for Saka, and as much as right now I'd like to keep my options open for potential double in game week 26, if I feel like he's going to get good minutes, I still would rather triple captain him than a defender right now. But I've got big concerns about Arsenal's attacking intent in general and about his role, whether he will get into more shooting positions, take more shots, and just generally be a threat around the box. I don't like the fact really that he's taking his man on down the line. What am I really expecting from Saka from crossing from his right foot near the byline? Not that he can't get assists, but certainly he's going to be less likely to get goals. And I think with any midfielder in the game, goals should still be the priority. So I'm likely to let it go this week because I want to see what role Mbeumo plays for Manchester United in their game against Fulham. He's obviously played centre forward for the last 2 weeks, but that's been games where Man United have been happy to play on transition, have low possession, rely on counter-attack. Now Man United are back at home against a supposed inferior team. And obviously Dorgu's injured. What does that mean for Mbeumo? Will he play as a midfielder alongside Ahmad and he becomes a winger? Will Cunha just come and play on the wing and Mbeumo stay centre forward? I don't know. And I'd want to see a game of evidence here of what that's going to be. So I'm going to wait 1 week, but I'm open-minded that next week it might be Saka to Mbeumo here and then get the third Arsenal in another way, whether that's Rice or whether that's an extra defender or something. So, yeah, some thoughts there on Arsenal and Saka moving forward. Next big talking point, I think, is around these next fixture runs. So I think there's 2 periods to attack here. There's the immediate 4 game weeks, game weeks 24 to game weeks 27. And then there's the 4 game weeks that follow that, game week 28 to game week 31. I think I'll start with, if you was on Wildcard this week, and if you've decided to activate that chip, you're in a position to attack both. And I think I would be really trying to maximize both of these periods. So I think you have to go all in towards targeting game week 24 to 27. That would mean Chelsea triple ups. I think it would mean Man United triple ups. I think it would mean a spread of Aston Villa, maybe a little bit of Bournemouth. Obviously, you want Arsenal because we think they're going to have a double. Maybe you want to cover a bit of Wolves. But that's your edge here by playing a wild card now, that you can maximise players with these fixtures. People like me that aren't wild carding can't get 6 players from Chelsea and Man United. We're going to have our hedge down the line sort of in doubles and blanks after game week 32. Wildcarders now should, in theory, be in an inferior position at that point, but can they get a points gain now instead? So, first things first, you can attack this block on Wildcard now. I could attack this block. I've still got 2 free transfers this week. I've already got Bruno Fernandes and Enzo Fernandez from Chelsea and Man United. There's nothing stopping me using my 2 free transfers, getting Chalobah in, maybe getting Mbeumo in, and having more players from these teams with good fixtures from 24 to 27, and trying to keep pace, what I would say, with wildcard teams. The issue being is that my team right now is set up towards, I think, the 28 to 31 period. I have people like Harry Wilson. I have people like Igor Thiago. And I'm quite reluctant to sell them because from 28 to 31, they've got 2 of the better fixture runs. And in particular, they're very handy in 31, which we think is going to be a blank game week. And therefore, getting 11 out might be tricky for some people. They're obviously going to be really good assets for that block. For those wildcarding now, you can have them. You cannot have those picks in sort of game week 24 to 27, and you can bring them in game week 28. So you roll, if you wildcard now and roll till game week 28, you'll have 4 or 5 free transfers. You can use them to do certain moves. That means getting Wilson in. You can have Enzo Fernandez now selling for Harry Wilson in game week 28. You can have João Pedro now and sell him for Igor Thiago in game week 28. I think you have to be aggressive now and then transition in game week 28. I'm not going to have enough free transfers here to be aggressive now and get what I want in game week 28. So I think my decision is, what's the best period to attack? Is it this 24-27 period and load up on Chelsea and Man United? Obviously, loading up on Chelsea now is easier, knowing they finished top 8 in the Champions League. They avoid 2 extra fixtures in the playoff round. Still a hefty fixture list, quite congested. But clearly there's opportunity here for the likes of João Pedro, for the likes of Chalobah, to get points. Equally, if I want to take a bit less risk, Man United don't have the same volume of fixtures. I could get Mbeumo in here and things like that. I could do that. And I'd probably be a bit lighter in game week 28. Or instead, do I enroll my transfers through to game week 28, a bit like the wildcarders, and get 5 free transfers in 28? And you look at Liverpool's fixtures, really good, game week 28. So in 28, can I do Enzo Fernandez to Florian Wirtz or something like that in game week 28? if I've still got Saka at that point, could I even get Mo Salah in game week 28? If I've got 5 free transfers and Saka to sell to Salah, can I find the extra 4 million or whatever it is to get Salah in? Probably doable, and it might be a really nice differential 28 to 31 to have Haaland and Salah. Most people won't be able to do that. Wildcarders now probably won't be in that position. I'm not saying having both is worth it. I'm not saying having either is worth it right now, neither delivering points at a frequent enough pace to justify the price. But for a short window of time before my 32 wildcard, I could have both. And maybe that's if I get Salah and he's looking like a captain's option over Haaland for that brief period, maybe I could gain. So at the moment, I am heading down the path of keeping my options open, getting to game week 28 with 4 or 5 free transfers and then assessing the lay of the land then. Probably getting a couple of Liverpool in for that 28 to 31 period, maybe topping up my Brentford and Fulham for that period. As I've said, I think in a previous video, maybe there's a bench boost opportunity for me between sort of around game week 29. I think it's possible the way my team's shaping that a 29 bench boost will look quite good for me. Obviously, I think the issue will be by then we're not quite sure what the double will be like in 33. And obviously that 33 double could be better than the 29 one. But 28 feels like a nice place for me to have options and to have choices. And 5 free transfers then with potential of using a bench boost, potential of targeting other teams. I think probably easier for me than chasing Chelsea points right now. But I think that for most of us, I think we're probably in a position where we can attack one of these. It's which one? If you attack now, you probably have to sort of roll your transfers sort of 28 to 30. Maybe in 31, you'll make a couple to get 11 out, and then you go into the wild card with 1 or 2 in the bank. If you roll through this period in 28, you can maybe attack a little bit more. But I think it's really hard with free transfers to attack both. I think wildcarders, I think, should be attacking both, and that's going to be their edge because they have to really accept they're going to be in a weaker position, sort of 32 and beyond. If they get enough gain now, that could sort of balance out against that. So, yeah, I thought I'd raise that sort of pick your poison, really. What do you see is the best attacking block here? Chelsea, Man United in particular now. Maybe Liverpool, Brentford, Fulham, sort of 28 to 31. Wildcard should be completely going after both. Finally, sort of for this pod is what would be my wild card now. Let me just change the screen a bit to make it a little bit bigger. So I've put together what I think would be my wildcard draft if I did activate, and I say it's firmly entrenched in the route of maximising now. So I'd have triple Chelsea for definite with these fixtures. I'd have triple Man United for definite with these fixtures, and I'd have triple Arsenal, knowing we think they're going to have a double. So Mane's also there for Wolves to cover the double. And then a couple of other sort of popular players that are worth having and holding through. So just to read it out, I'd have Raya and Dubravka as my 2 keepers. Obviously, Raya is part of the Arsenal triple up, can be benched in game week 31, which might be handy if Arsenal are in the League Cup final. Back 3 of Gabriel, Chalobah and Maguire. Maguire's quite cheap. I expect him to stay in the team for now. Obviously, under threat longer term from Yoro, Lindelof, De Ligt, and people like that. But I think at 4.3, he's in the team for now. Clear goal threat from set pieces. Some capability of DEFCON. I think he's got it in one of the last 2 games. I think he's not a bad pickup, quite cheap. For those looking for defenders under 4.5 million, he does obviously come with a little bit of a minutes risk. Is he completely nailed? I'm not sure. But at that price point, there aren't loads of options below 4.5. With these Man United fixtures, with his goal threat and with his capabilities of DEFCON, he might be better than the likes of Ezri Konsa or someone like that for this run, or a Leeds defender or something. So I think I take the chance and I say these Man United fixtures are good. Chalobah's in for the Chelsea defensive coverage, and obviously Gabriel's a no-brainer. On the bench is Tarkowski, who personally I think is probably the second best defender in the game right now after Gabriel. Very, very reliable for DEFCON. Everton's defence isn't bad. The fixtures are fairly steady looking ahead. And then Joachim Andersen's in there because, I say, from 28 onwards, we want Fulham defenders. Just get that locked in now. Save yourself a transfer down the line. I don't think you desperately need like a Matt Cash in that position right now, even though in the short term his fixtures are better. I think the Bournemouth guys are a bit risky. Will Senesi still be a Bournemouth player at the end of the deadline? We don't know. I know James Hill's in the team right now at 3.9 and is tempting people, but I always feel like he's one game away from maybe getting dropped.
I'd be concerned more about his minutes moving forward than Harry Maguire's. And I think you want to avoid too much risk in this defence. What you don't want to be doing now on Wildcard is then giving yourself sort of players that are going to give you a headache. I think you need to try and get yourself in a position where you can roll to game week 28. And if you put James Hill in and he's dropped next week, you're one player down. So I don't think you need to get him. I think he's reasonable if you've literally only got 3.9 to spend. But I think I'd find the extra for Maguire. Into midfield, double Man United's there with Bruno Fernandes and Brian Mbeumo. Enzo's in there for sort of relatively safe minutes, possible penalties, attacking threat, etc. Declan Rice as the third Arsenal with Raya and Gabriel. And then Morgan Rogers, just because Villa are quite helpful from now till 31. Talisman midfielder, possible penalties. A lot goes through Rogers for Villa. I just think he's a steady hold. Someone that can get you sort of 2-3 attacking returns in the same game if he's on a good streak. And then up front, Haaland and João Pedro. João Pedro is obviously risky. We expect him to rotate minutes with Liam Delap. But 2 goals against Napoli last night might keep him in the team for longer. And I think if you're wildcarding now, you have to punt triple Chelsea. They're the big upside team. And I think I'd rather have João Pedro than double defence with like Sanchez, with Chalobah. I think Pedro is safer than Palmer and all these sorts of decisions. So I think I would pick him. Mane, the third striker on the bench. I say if the Arsenal Wolves double goes ahead in 26, we've got that covered. So, yeah, this would be my choice. Say the triple Chelsea, triple Man United, triple Arsenal, and then sprinklings of like Haaland and Rodgers alongside that, and a little bit of forward planning with Tarkowski and Joachim Andersen, Mane. I've also put on the screen what you can get to then in game week 28. So if you don't make a transfer between sort of 24 and 28, you'll obviously have 4 or 5 free transfers at that point. There you don't want Chelsea anymore. So all 3 Chelsea players can be sold. Chalobah can become Matt Cash, who's helpful 28, 29. Also has a nice fixture in game week 31 when you'll need that covered because of it's a blank for some teams. Enzo can become Harry Wilson. That's a nice entry point for Fulham. And João Pedro can become Thiago because, again, nice entry point for Brentford. So I think those 3 moves are quite obvious. And I've also moved Declan Rice to Florian Wirtz here because if Arsenal do get the blank in 31, you'll need to start moving away from your Arsenal players. 28's the start of a good fixture swing for Liverpool. They're around about the same price. So for 4 transfers, you then transition into the next block where you get the extra Fulham, the extra Brentford, the extra Villa, and the extra Liverpool. If you've got 5 free transfers, you could also make another move. You might want to move, I don't know, Harry Maguire to Virgil van Dijk or something at that point. Or say another Fulham, another Brentford. Nathan Collins might be an option at that point, something like that. But that team on the right, sort of the game week 28 team, is probably fine to run through then until sort of game week 32, where you can build your transfers back up till 5 again. Because there you only have, based on expectation right now, Raya would blank, but you can play Dubravka. And your 3 bench players in game week 31, if all goes to plan, would be Gabriel, Haaland, and whatever third player you would choose, or Mane at the moment. So you can bench those 3, and you've still got 11 players for game week 31. If you wanted to make one transfer and improve Mane or something, you could, but it's not necessary. You're still playing with an 11. So you use 4 transfers in 28, roll again till 32. You navigate through 31, fine. And in 32, you've then got 4 or 5 free transfers back in hand to try and compete with Wildcard. You've hopefully still got your 3 hit, and you can build from that base. So this would be my plan if I was on Wildcard, but my team doesn't need it right now. And I don't quite know if I trust Chelsea and Man United enough. I've got question marks over both for different reasons. It makes me think I don't want to go all in on these teams. But if you Wildcard now, I think your advantage is that you can target 24 and 28 and still be semi-prepared for 32. Those that are saving the Wildcard till 32 can't really attack both of these blocks. So personally, I think you have to do it if you're on Wildcard. So yeah, that's it for this pod. So for my own team this week, I'm probably looking to roll. I've already got 2 free transfers, so that will take me into 3 for next week. I say I'm open-minded to do Saka to Mbeumo. I think that's on possible radar for me. And I've accepted now. I'm just going to hold certain players through. So I've got Harry Wilson. I've got Igor Thiago. I can completely see and appreciate and accept that for the next 4 weeks, there's better options. But I'm hoping they tick over enough that I can basically hold rank. I'm about 65k, I think, overall at the moment. And the plan is really, if I can still be at 65k around game week 28, I would class that as a massive win, competing with the wildcarders and really not making any transfers in this period. If I'm at 5 free transfers in 28, at my current rank, I'm going to be in a really strong position at that point in the season to push on and hopefully sort of chase down that top 10k. So that's it for this one. Yeah, look, some thoughts on Arsenal, some thoughts on these upcoming fixture blocks, and what I would do if I was on Wildcard. Please give this video a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed what you've heard. And I'll be back next week before game week 25 with some updated thoughts on the topics of that moment. Thanks, everyone. See you later. Let's do this.